This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. It's a Technique Tuesday and we're still working on bar chords. So in the last couple Technique Tuesday lessons, we've worked on bar chords. In the first one, so 2 weeks ago, we looked at the most common shapes and talked physically how you kind of play the bar chords. Some good tricks there. And then in the last lesson, we looked at how we can position those shapes along the fretboard to play the different tonalities. So B flat versus C versus G, then versus D7, A7, E7, those sorts of things. In this lesson, we're going to look at some less common shapes that exist that you can use to make bar chords as well. The ones I gave in the first lesson are the ones that are definitely the ones to start with and the ones that we use the most often, but we actually end up using these other shapes, especially when you play solo guitar, because we can change up what notes are on top, how the harmonies are there, and then sometimes in a song we just want one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and dive us right in. Now, we learned shapes that were from the E chord and the A chord. We can basically take any chord in first position and turn it into a bar chord if we can do it physically. So any of our open position chords, meaning any of our chords down here in first position that use the open strings, we can turn those into bar chords if we can physically do it. So we're going to take a look a little bit at that. In first position, we are in open position. We have C chords, A chords, G chords, E chords, and D chords. Everything else we do in first position tends to be a bar chord. So we learned E and A. Now we're going to learn C, G, and D. And then at the end, actually, I'm going to show you how to do a 4-string version of E instead of the 6-string version that we learned originally. So I've got the C chord shapes here. We don't have an open position option for C minor or G minor. So we just have the major chord options and the dominant 7th chord options. And I have the C chord here and G chord shapes there. So these ones are a little different here compared to our E chord and A chord shapes, because the E chord and A chord shapes had the open string as their root, the low E or that 5th string A. But these ones have a finger on it, so our bar is going to be in a different position than where our lowest root is as we're finding how to position them along the fretboard. I'm going to come up nice and high. As we start with the C chord, I'm going to make it an F chord by putting the root, that square there, on the 8th fret. And our 8th fret on that 5th string is an F pitch. So this is going to be an F chord, and I need to take, my bar is going to be 3 frets lower, and it only bars over these top 3 strings. So the bar, all it needs to handle are the open strings of any of the shapes that we use. But with the E chord and A chord, that usually means for the E chord shapes, that's barring all 6 strings. For the A chord shapes, that's barring the top 5 strings and muting the low 6th string. In this case, we only have to bar the top 3 strings because we only have the open top string and the open 3rd string when we play the C chord in first position. So if I put my pinky, pinky ring and then middle fingers on my C chord and put that bar in front of it, I can bar all 5 if I want to, but I also only have to bar those top 3. So either way, it doesn't matter. Whatever works for you. Sometimes it might be nice to bar all 5 because then you can come and mute the 6th string easier with your index than you could with your pinky. Otherwise, you just need to make sure and only strum those top 5 strings. So that'd be the C. For C7, we actually don't have 5 fingers. We have our thumb, but we would need 5 fingers without the thumb, so 6 total on our left hand, to be able to catch this E. So we usually, when we're going to play the dominant 7th version, we usually just take this finger and mute that high string, and we would have C7. And we've omitted the 5th from the chord. If you want to know more about that, check out those Theory Thursday lessons. But there's our C7, and we can just mute. Sometimes I'll bring my thumb around. This one is really physically easy to play because we don't technically have a bar here. But that would be an F7. So we'd have F major, and then we have F7. So that's another option we have for the major and dominant 7th chords using the C chord shapes. The G chord shapes I think are physically a little bit trickier because it's this big stretch to put that bar 2 frets lower than where that finger is. But with this one, I'm going to use the C note at the 8th fret there on the 6th string. So that'll be our root. So we can put down that G chord. And then got to reach and catch these 3 notes, and you'll have, in this case, a C chord. Now these ones work the same way the other ones worked, meaning whatever note our root note is on along the fretboard, wherever we position that root note along the fretboard, whatever pitch we're on, that's the version we're going to be playing. So in this case, I'm playing C. C7, this G7 shape is really quite a tricky one. You got to go pinky, ring, middle, and then catch that bar. But it is possible if you can get it. And you have the G7 shape there. So we've got those ones, and like I mentioned, we don't have a G minor shape in first position that has any open strings, so no bar chord shape can come out of it, and neither with the C minor. In first position, both of those are using another chord. So if we play C minor in that first position area in a song, we're actually playing the A minor shape in front of the bar. So we're playing an A minor shape, and if we do G minor, we're playing the E minor shape in front of a bar. So we've already learned those in a previous lesson. Let's look at the D chord shapes. We have a major D in first position, a dominant 7th, and a minor. So we've got all 3 options here for our typical most common chords that we play in music. So if I go, and I'm just going to be at the 5th fret. The trick with these ones is that our root is now on the 4th string instead of the 5th or 6th string. So we have to learn where those roots are. So I've got it right here. The first one we'd actually play is at the 3rd fret. So I've got 3, 5, 7, and then 9, and then 10 and 12. It's actually not that hard to figure these out if you learn the low 2 strings, and this is why. The 4th string is just essentially 2 frets higher than the low 6th string, plus an octave. So if I have an A note at the 5th fret of the 6th string, I have an A note at the 7th fret of the 4th string. Or if I have a G note at the 3rd fret of the 6th string, I have a G note at the 5th fret of the 4th string. So it's just 2 frets higher. So everything is 2 frets higher than the 6th string. But I do have them written there. Sharps and flats work the same as they do always. So sharps are 1 fret higher, flats are 1 fret lower, like I explained in the last lesson. So if I come and put my index finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string, that is a G pitch. So I'm going to be doing G examples here. So to play the D shape, I just need to put my index finger there and then put the shape in front of it. Now with these, I also don't need a bar because the only open string that's being used is where the root is. So as long as I have my index finger playing there, I don't technically have to bar, but I can bar. It's okay to bar, but you don't have to, and sometimes it's much more physically relaxing not to. So I put that D chord shape. I just need to make sure and have the space in between there, and we've got D. Just like that if I want that higher sound. And then the next one over shows D7, which I think is super easy to play. And that's a nice dominant 7th chord option there. And then the D minor down below. So just like our D minor shape. So that becomes G minor in this position. So those are some other options that we sometimes end up using. So we've got the D, that's now G. We've got the D7, that's now G7, and we got the D minor, that's now G minor. So great options there. Now we looked at the E chord shapes and the A chord shapes. The E chord shapes actually can be done on just the top 4 strings. So in first position, you might be familiar with this F chord and or this F chord. Well, we can do these with the top 4 strings with the major chord and the minor chord. So we have a major chord option and a minor chord option that is just used on these top 4 strings, and sometimes we will just use these as opposed to using all 6 strings. So I put them up here. Sometimes it's easy to just see this as being major, but we have our little bar there, short little bar to play what oftentimes we play as an F chord in first position. But if I take this up and have my ring finger on that G, just like I had my index finger on the G there. Now I have a G chord, or I could go up and do 2 frets higher, be in 5th position, and have the A chord. And so same thing with those 4 strings. And this is an easy place to see how the roots on the 4th string are 2 frets higher than the roots on the 6th string. Because if we play that full on A, the full bar chord version of this that we learned earlier, now we just do the top 4 strings and it's like, oh yeah, there they are. An octave apart, but just 2 frets higher. So that's the major, and then the minor, we bar across the top 3. And we have the, in this case where I'm playing an A minor, because my root is on the A, there with my index barring at the 5th fret. Or I could go down and do G minor, or down and do F minor, and so on, anywhere along there. Okay, so here we are. I guess with this one I didn't put the little bar chord drawn line, but that's okay. You can just bar across those top 3 notes. So that's how we can play other bar chord options, and that gives us lots of options along the fretboard for writing songs, playing songs, and all sorts of things. Of course, physically, we gotta have to work to get these out. Some of these are easier than the other ones, and some of them are harder. These ones are particularly harder. Some of the D and E chord shapes might be physically a little bit easier, and they might give you options to play chords throughout the fretboard as needed. So hope that little tidbit helps on our Technique Tuesday. Hope you are having so much fun playing the guitar. Of course, we have jazz lessons on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays right now. And on Thursdays, we got our Theory Thursdays. On Saturdays, we've got the strumming lessons still coming out as part of that series. So lots of great things. Keep having fun with the guitar. Take care, and we'll see you again.
If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my guitar method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.